Welcome to Starfleet Boy. Audience, please attend carefully. There are lots of spoilers for Star Trek in general. Gotta put my badge on. Wouldn't be regulation without it. There we go. All right. Well, oh wait. Da 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 da. 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 Very nice. And we're back on another exciting episode of Starfleet Boy, where we have a casual and informal conversation about Star Trek. Today we're focused... What episode? Oh my god. I just blanked on the episode title.
Oh, Eye of the Beholder.
Of the Beholder. Oh my goodness. Is that a first on Starfleet Boy? Have I ever done that before?
Yes, you have.
Oh, thank goodness. my reputation's intact. Eye of the Beholder, which should tell you... I have the replicator has brought me orange juice.
Oh wow. I wish my replicator...
Thank you so much. Cheers,
Doctor. I've got water here. I'll join you with that.
We'll just jump right into it. I forgot this episode ever existed. When I started watching it, I was like... I completely didn't remember this episode until I kind of vaguely remembered Troi and Worf hooking up and those scenes, like them first getting together. That's all I remembered.
Because that just sort of I guess what's the A plot which is not bad. It completely disappears because the B plot is what just stays in your mind and you can't forget it. You're like, it's like seeing incest or something. It's like,
no, what do you mean incest?
Worf and Troi, man. I'm sorry.
No, they were great. I loved it.
I am not in that camp. No.
Wow, you're not just not in that camp. You seem offended by it.
Offended.
That's crazy.
It was really awkward.
What? Is it because he's a Klingon?
No, it's because there's no chemistry and it just shouldn't happen. But go ahead. This is way too early.
It was okay. So
do the summary. Do the summary.
Talking about it, unfortunately, we're colored by the whole experience, right? Like we're all like.
I was always against it, even back then.
No, but I'm saying like now you can at least look at it from like, okay, it was a blip on Worf's and Troy's romantic life. It was handled badly.
It was
because
a terrible mistake by the makers of the show. It was just terrible.
I liked it. Like I thought the romantic stuff was interesting in this episode. What I didn't like is how they just ended it. Like it was just done. That was it. Like in all good, right? Isn't that what happens? Like in all good things, it just stops or something. I don't remember. But anyways, by the time we get to the films, all of a sudden she's back into Riker. And I also thought it was interesting, Riker's reaction when Worf... There's a lot of great moments in this episode that I completely forgot about. Like, one was when Riker was reacting to Worf asking permission to, like, date Counselor Troi. I thought that was pretty fun. You could tell at this point in Commander Riker's life, he's like, I don't care,
he's Austin
Worf.
Powers. He's like, hey,
do what you want.
Do whatever
I'm going to go
want.
partake in this orgy happening over here.
Right.
Bye. There are probably orgies going on the Enterprise. Not necessarily on any of the other Enterprises, but on the D, I could confidently say that there's all kinds of wild stuff.
And they're all happening in Will Riker's quarters.
Oh my goodness.
All of
All
them.
right, we really derailed that. We didn't even give an episode summary. We just jumped
Do we
right
need
into
to?
it.
This is a weird
What's
episode.
that?
This is a weird episode. I don't know how you're going to do the summary.
It is a weird episode. Here, I'll give it a try.
Give it a shot.
A psychic event happened on the Enterprise when it was being built at Utopia Planitia, tied to a murder, and that psychic event was somehow reawoken and through this empath that's been on the ship, who's using, another one of these empaths that use their abilities to like mess with people.
Yeah.
Um,
Damn empaths.
And he murders one of the officers who also
He's
thing
murdered more
interesting
than
about
one,
it-
though, I think.
Yeah, he murdered the people long ago, and then he murdered this guy who jumps in the beginning
Right.
into the whatever it is, plasma, the plasma beams. Which, by the way, I have to I love that set.
It's a
I think
great set.
I think they use it later in Enterprise, as a matter of fact. The interior part without the warp
Is repurposed. Yeah.
repurposed for Enterprise. It's the room where they practice phasers in or whatever. But or it's their cargo bay, or I think later on. But anyways, here it's this like what you're actually seeing. Let me pull my model out here.
Ooh, is this the Eagle Moss model here?
This is the Eagle Moss Enterprise. So what you're actually seeing is you're like in this yellow band. They're in this yellow band over here, and it's not very clear in the Enterprise. I mean, in the episode, but I think that's where they are. We would have to like go with track yards or something to be sure. But that you're looking down in that direction, the nacelle, and you're seeing the inside of the nacelle.
That's incredible.
Going all the way back. And so I thought that was, for back then, a really cool set. And it's obviously like a model, like a bigature or a it could have been CGI back then. I'm not sure, but it was definitely some kind of CGI matte combo, because there's another scene where you see it in the background. You see it in the background a lot. They really use the heck out of it. But you even see details, and I don't know if this is original or from the remastering, but I believe they're very faithful to like all the things that happen in the original airing. But you see like little red lights like kind of moving in the background, and all kinds of lights flashing, and so it's a very intricate, beautifully done set. So I just wanted to pause my
I
summary
love
to
the
give
set.
a kudos to that.
Absolutely.
But anyways, the guy jumps into it and dies, and everyone's kind of traumatized on the ship, and then that leads to this basically a murder investigation, or an investigation into the circumstance around his death. And Counselor Troi gets caught up into it, and she gets this like heavy psychic impression and starts seeing like visions of like so we get a really cool glimpse of the Enterprise when it was still being constructed at Utopia Planitia through these psychic memories, if you will, these imprints that she's tuned into. And then in the middle of all of that, she and Worf start dating, and they have a romantic liaison. And it finally ends with there's also like an odd smattering of jealousy thrown in, and we see that side of Counselor Troi rear its ugly head where she's very jealous of Worf, and then the empath who's behind all this plays on that and pits her against shows her a false vision of Worf and another ensign, or an ensign that I forget her name, but that she thought.
Yeah, she's the one who she was with the guy who committed suicide at the beginning of the episode. Right.
That's right. So anyways, this whole all plays out, and Counselor Troi is about to jump into the this is what this guy does. He like forces you to relive this horrible event, and then forces you to jump into the plasma. It's perfect death because you're obliterated and whatever. So he's about to do this. He's about to do the same thing to Counselor Troi with his like empathic, which is not clear. Maybe you found, but like I wasn't 100% clear on what his motivation was to do all this. Maybe I missed that because it got lost in the romance of the episode. But you'll have to remind us, Doctor. But anyways, Worf comes and saves the day at the last minute, and they find out, what's going on and arrest the guy, and somehow the episode ends, and that's it.
I like the way you said somehow.
It ends somehow. I don't remember it ending
because I don't think I've ever had this experience with Next Generation where the episode ended and I was not expecting it. Like, it didn't come to a net. It just kind of I'm like,
I just saw this yesterday, by the way.
I saw it like an hour ago.
And I can't remember the ending.
No, because there's nothing to remember. It just ends. It's like they ran out of footage. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, there's so many things to wrap up here, and I don't know. It was really bad. And okay, all right.
That's a good chuckle there, Doctor.
Let's unpack this episode.
All right.
There is good and there is bad. If you had spoken to 18-year-old me, I would have said this episode totally sucks. And there is a lot that sucks in this episode, but
I think I missed this. It must have been like finals week,
or
something.
You watched
it. I watched.
We had major arguments over this episode.
Oh, we did. Okay. We had arguments.
Not arguments, but I really hated the episode, and and I think you were just kind of like defending. No, but the show, you're defending the show, and I'm attacking the episode. If you get what I mean, like
I remember me back then being very uninterested in Counselor Troi and Worf, so I don't think I would have defended this episode. Like, my whole thing was always defending Data and
well, you were defending the show, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's true, and that too. Yeah.
But I'm attacking the episode, but well, I'll say the good first, right? Start off with the good, then go with the bad. It actually begins with a very tense situation. It's one that I don't think we've seen very often in Star Trek.
The suicide scene,
and just the very idea of suicide in the 24th century. I mean, the show has tackled it before, but it tackled it. It was another species. Remember, it was one where Troy's mother falls in love with
David Ogden
Stiers, and he has to commit like a ritual suicide, and
at the age of 65 or something like that.
Right, and then Worf also.
We don't have long to go, Doctor.
No, we don't.
Sorry to get
Red
dark.
6. Logan's Run reference. We also had Worf. Remember, he was going to kill himself because he was injured. His back was injured.
He was paralyzed and he couldn't see himself. That was right.
Right.
That was an episode that dealt with that.
Right. So we've dealt with the issue before, but I feel that the opening of this episode, I thought it was interesting because, with the other two, there was always how do I say it? There was a cultural element. It was the other. Even though Worf is one of the main characters, his Klingon heritage is, makes him kind of an other, and everybody else is like, Worf, this doesn't make sense, and ta-ta-ta. But this was just an average crewman, and at that point, all we see is that he's committing suicide. And even Captain Picard says in the follow-up to the scene that never in his command had he ever lost anyone to suicide. Which, if you think about, at that point in his career, I mean, he's captained what, 2 or 3 ships?
Yeah, at least. Well, there was the
2 ships.
He was 2 ships, the Stargazer and the Enterprise. But he was the commander on the Reliant, wasn't he?
Right. So I mean, he's been around for a while. So and then just the way we see the society at that point, one would think that there would be very little of that. So I think the episode kind of teased this, sort of a look at, maybe mental illness in the 24th century, which I found to be a unique and interesting topic. And then it morphs into something else. It morphs into...
Well, and then oddly, it could have, even within the way the episode went, like, I don't remember Riker could have dealt I think they should have focused perhaps on how Riker was dealing with the situation, and I feel like he's just partying in 10 Forward.
You know, that's a very good point. He. I thought Frakes' acting was great in the opening scene.
Yeah, in the opening scene, it's very.
And then later on, when they're they're kind of dealing with the events in the ready room. He has a very casual lay back on the couch. He suddenly just being
our style of of show is based on Riker's command style. It's casual and informal.
But exactly, like he kind of lets go of being like he's just being a person at that moment. He's just kind of like, my God, So I thought that was all interesting, but then once Picard orders Troi and Worf to get involved, which makes perfect sense. She's the counselor and he's the chief of security. It turns into almost a Hitchcockian kind of mystery, and there's even elements in the score. I could hear a little bit of who's the composer? Bernard Herrmann. There were little cues that reminded me of Bernard Herrmann, and everything up until the moment where Worf goes to Troy's quarters and takes her hand I was like, yeah, this is interesting, this is good, I think this is great for Troi, this is a great Troi episode, it's showcasing her powers in a good way, and then yeah, that's where the episode pretty much ended for me.
I only want to antagonize you. I really could care less about it one way or the other. I like whatever. It was just like, again, I say like a blip in both of their. It's an interesting, weird. I agree that it's not. I just don't have a vehement reaction like you do.
I hate it. It was awkward, and it's funny. Yesterday. No, I guess I have to say spoilers for anyone who's watching Outlander. I'll give you a moment to mute.
Okay. Which isn't that show oddly related to?
Yes,
Doctor Who.
Doctor Who and Star Trek.
Wait, there's a Star Trek connection?
Iris Stephen Bear is the producer, and Ron Moore.
Oh.
And let me tell you, it shows. The show is phenomenal.
Oh, really?
Yeah, great
show.
I
gotta see it.
We watched an episode where the two characters who you expect to come together finally come together, and you've been,
how many seasons are we into this?
It's 10 books, I think, and they're in season 6 or 5.
So it took 6 seasons for them to come together?
No, I'm watching.
Gotcha.
No, I'm in season 1, episode 7.
Gotcha. Okay, I understand.
And you'd felt that sexual, the romantic chemistry and the tension. So when it happens, it's finally like you feel as released as they do. You're like, oh wow, this is great, and you kind of go along with it. I watched Worf and Troi come together, and it was like I just wanted to close my eyes. I just didn't want to see it. It was just wrong.
Just physically, it's wrong. Is it like visually wrong? What is it like?
The characters what is it for you? Don't have any chemistry at all. It doesn't make any sense.
But I don't understand why Worf. This season, I feel like there's a light setup that led to. Maybe it's just because I already knew, but I feel like there was a light setup that led to this. I was actually waiting as I watched season 7. I was like, oh, this is the season where they like hook up. I just had forgotten how it happened, like when it happened. Like I forgot that it was this episode that it happened. It was like
creeps up on you.
The eye of the beholder. It's like, well, I guess beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
There's no
Doctor.
beauty here.
There's Troi and she even says, why did we do this long ago? She says it to them. It's totally
no, I don't believe
natural.
It I don't believe it at all. There's nothing in previous I don't know. It just felt totally.
To me,
it
to
felt
me,
to me.
it,
Go ahead.
I guess what I like about it is, for me, just purely on an aesthetic level, it harkens to like the Beauty and the Beast kind of, trope. It to me, what I like it. I mean, even actually, if you look at the Beast design of Disney's, there's a shape that's very
But
similar.
they have chemistry
to Worf.
It makes sense though. Like there's romance.
I-
There's feeling. There's emotion. Here, it
I
just
think
seemed
that
like
they didn't.
because
I
the
think
script
that the
says
actors didn't go.
Worf.
I think that the actors didn't go as far as they could. I will give you that. I do agree that there could have. I know that both Michael Dorn and Marina Sirtis can give that. Maybe there just wasn't chemistry between. Whoa, you're yawning.
Sorry.
Maybe there wasn't chemistry. That's.
I mean,
and it is evident. But I do think just on a like a in-universe world, like an in-world perspective, to me it doesn't matter. Like, people are sleeping with random people on the Enterprise all the time. Like, to me it's just like, oh, they hooked up. Like, this happens on the Enterprise all the time, and future people don't really like have the same laws of attraction that we do. Like, to me,
no,
like,
but I'm saying in terms of storytelling, like it just kind of takes you out of the episode. It's like when, okay, I'll give another example, and if Sean were here, he'd probably argue with me too. Is when Seven of Nine shacks up with Chakotay, and you're kind of like, what the hell are these two characters even seeing each other? They don't even like each other, as far as I'm concerned.
That far yet.
And
I can't comment.
And so, I just said spoilers for those of you who haven't watched Voyager.
Now, on the original series, there was a suggestion that Scotty and Uhura were gonna connect in Star Trek V.
Oh, in 5. Okay, yeah.
In
Okay,
Star Trek V.
So that's a great example. That takes you out of the movie. It's like, I remember watching Star Trek V and thinking, what the hell is this? Uhura and Scotty don't have a thing for each other. Where did this come from? Why is she bringing him chips? Like it.
What did you think of Uhura and Spock in the Kelvin films?
Oh, I initially had problems with it, and I still, I never quite worked for me, but they're good actors, and
you did feel the chemistry. In other words.
I didn't feel the chemistry, but
okay.
I understood why they did it. I think in terms of the logistics, you need to have a balance of character interactions, and making Uhura be romantic with another crew member keeps her in the story easier.
What about Worf and Jadzia?
Oh, see, that's that was great. That was handled great. Like, you believed when they got together, and that
so
was...
you just object. It's not a Klingon human thing. It's more of
No.
Oh, okay. I was just curious. No, I was curious. I just had to. No. I had to go there, Doctor. I had to go there.
No.
You got to figure it out. Okay.
No. You're reading me wrong. No, I'm not saying. No, I love.
You had such a you were like repulsed. So I can only think visually.
It's like
now I get it now. I think I get it. It's like, So wait, what's the most successful Star Trek romance?
It's like if Crusher had a thing with Riker. Those are my two favorite characters. I love Riker and I love Crusher. But to me, that would have been like, what? That doesn't make sense.
You would have also
or Pulaski with Picard. Let's say that.
Were there any? Do you? I mean, I think we both agree that like Crusher and Picard is a thing that could still and should have happened or could have happened.
We both actively ship them, as the kids say.
Should we ship that? I like that. Okay, we both actively ship that.
Yes, but there's evidence in the show.
Right? No. That's not what I'm just talking.
It's not. Just
I'm going in a different direction. I've totally lost interest in the episode, but I have questions for you because I'm curious now. What was the best Star Trek romance so far? Like, what's been the best? Is it Troi and Riker? Is it Cassidy Yates and Sisko? Like, what's the best Star Trek romance that you can think of?
Wow, wow! You threw me a curveball. I have to I have to take a moment to think about it.
And do Crusher and Picard count as a Star Trek romance?
No,
like they never,
no,
right?
they
never
don't.
consummate it.
It never. It's an almost. You know, okay, it's a sidebar, but you know the book that takes place in between Picard the series and Next Generation, they actually resolve the Crusher Picard thing in just like one line. Because it features.
Do I need to sit down? Is this gonna
no?
break my heart?
I'll read it to you. I have it here. Well, no, I have to.
Is this gonna break my heart? Are you
kind
are
of?
you
Yeah.
to...
It's the sense that Picard is telling everybody he's leaving the Enterprise, and he leaves the last person he tells is Crusher, and Crusher's expecting him to ask her to go with him. And he doesn't, and the author says, something like to the effect of, as Jean-Luc Picard never does with Beverly Crusher, he doesn't go there. He doesn't go where Crusher opens the door for him to come in, but he never will, and that's the way the book leaves it. Is that
I don't. That is. I disagree. It's not canon. No, I disagree. That is one of my biggest gripes with Star Trek Picard is I really wish that there was a footnote even that they had at least tried. Just like in All Good Things, it was suggested that they tried. And, All Good Things doesn't put a great end to their relationship. I mean, she's the former
right
Mrs. Picard, so they got married and it didn't work out. So I would have liked to have seen at least some kind of thing like that. But I'm okay with them being just the best of friends. Like, she's one of his dearest friends, like at the end of the day I can relate to that because certainly some of my romances over the years that could have been and never were.
We all have those. We
all have those, so it's true.
But in response to your question, I think I might say Kira and Odo.
Ooh.
I think that was one that clearly was, if you watch the beginning of the first early seasons of the show, you kind of. It's very subtle, and I guess what I like, it all depends on what you want, and I think with a romance, you like little subtle steps, and then suddenly, I'm thinking Star Wars, you have the first movie, and then you get half of or most of The Empire Strikes Back, until you finally get the moment where they confess their Han Solo and Leia their love for each other, and to me, I mean, across two movies, that was a nice build up to that, and I feel that there was no. I just didn't see any build up to this. It was just something that, even within the episode, it seemed to come out of nowhere. And I know there have been previous episodes in this season where they've kind of toyed with it. Because there was one where I think Troi takes some kind of bath with Worf and his kid.
Oh, in the mud bath you're talking about?
The mud bath. So there have been Troi Worf pairings in episodes.
Well, they're friends. They're definitely, the friendship, I would say, is definitely
stronger,
right, and you definitely see it. I do feel like they were trying to set something. I feel like there was a plan. It just didn't work for me either. So I think, but there are lots of Troi Worf fans. If I'm not mistaken, I don't think I was that person, but I believe one of the people in our group, and I can't remember who it was, but I'm pretty confident it was the Empress, was like adamantly for this relationship. I don't know. I'd have to ask the Empress what she may say. You're crazy. I hated that, but I kind of vaguely remember that. But I'd like to hear from audience members who on both sides. Do you agree with the Doctor and I that it wasn't really like a relationship that worked out, or do you think that they should have gone further with that and that it does pay off though in All Good Things when we find out that Troi is the one. You know how, like, in real life, in real Star Trek life, Data is the one we lost of the crew, but it was always Q showed, like, perhaps a future that was inevitable from a structural standpoint, and there was always going to be a member of the crew that was lost. And in All Good Things, in the anti-time timeline, Troi is dead. She's the one they lost. Whereas in whatever you want to call it, the prime timeline. Did you freeze, Doctor?
No.
Oh.
I'm listening.
Oh, gotcha. Thank you. In the prime timeline, I think it's interesting that Data was the sacrificial lamb of the TNG family. So that's cool. And of course, we get a big payoff in Picard for Data. At least I did.
I don't know. Like I said, I think the episode. Well, let's take it back to the plot. What do you think about this homicidal Starfleet officer who's been on the Enterprise for all 7 years and
for
nobody
all 6 years, yeah, and nobody knows. I thought that was strange, and although again, on the surface level, it was very interesting in the sense that, like, people who helped build the Enterprise also serve aboard her. Like, that's like an interesting. It'd be cool if, like, Miles O'Brien had that backstory. Like, if he's like, I helped build her and then I became chief of transporter chief, or whatever. I don't know. Right. Yeah, I like that whole thing. I did think it was interesting how different Utopia Planitia feels, even though we don't see it in.
Yeah, we're in the Enterprise.
But it feels different because it's like, everything about that we see about Utopia Planitia, I think, is like colored by now this whole like new aesthetic that, again, it's okay, it fits in fine in Star Trek Picard because Picard takes place in the future and you can do whatever you want. Uh-huh. But we lost this kind of like rounded kind of TNG aesthetic. I didn't see it anywhere the way we saw it in this episode, and I think that was interesting. Like, those kits and like everything's just flatter, which makes sense. Again, technology advances, so everything's just flatter in the future. There's a lot more roundedness and bulkiness, and I thought it was interesting. Like, it would be cool to see ships being built at the space yards, like if they do a flashback in season 2. I don't know. I think it's rumored now that LeVar Burton will definitely be in season 2, which is exciting. So, yeah.
Yeah, I saw.
I think Variety. Yeah, Variety.
I saw Trek on the Tube.
I haven't seen it yet.
He speaks to it. Yes.
Great. Got to watch that, and we'll take that opportunity to plug Trek on the Tube's channel.
Yes.
Here.
He kind of covers all the news up to this moment. Up to 5 hours ago.
So give us like the breakdown here, the exclusive on Starfleet Boy. What is the, other than LeVar Burton, what's the news?
No, I mean, there were some comments made by LeVar Burton about that you will definitely see him, and of course, we've already heard that Guinan, and then apparently what's her name, Rosario Dawson, made some. She was recently. I believe she's been cast in The Mandalorian as Osaka. I believe that's official.
You're Osaka?
Yeah. Isn't
Who's
that
Osaka? There's no name named Osaka.
Is from Clone Wars. What's her name?
It's not Osaka.
Oh, what's her name?
You're thinking of Musaka.
No, like I'm thinking of Musaka. I'm sorry. What's her name in Clone Wars?
Anakin's apprentice.
Padawan.
It's gonna take me her let's see. It is Ahsoka.
Ahsoka. I'm sorry.
Ahsoka Tano.
Osaka. Thank you.
Osaka Tano. You heard it here first.
Yeah, there we go. I'm sorry. Musaka.
Wait. So what does Rosario Dawson have to do with Star Trek, though?
Well, apparently, I guess in talking about Star Wars, she made some Star Trek comments and said that she'd love to be on Star Trek as Q or something to that effect. As
Oh,
AQ.
we would love to have we would love to have her. Well, they all just refer to each other as Q,
Right,
so that would be correct actually.
Right.
But
Something
she
like
would
that.
be she would play
watch his video.
Q.
Don't take my word for it. He explains it better than I do.
I'll check it out.
Yeah.
I think that Rosario Dawson, the Star Trek community would probably welcome you with open arms and open hearts. That's very cool.
You know, you mentioned Picard, Utopia, Planitia, Picard, and in this episode, I actually found a commonality, which was weird because, the people that, and I know Sean mentioned this in the discussions, that they're a little bit rougher around the edges.
Oh my gosh! Thank you.
Than we were used to. When we saw
this
it in
was
Picard,
true.
And then
this was true in this episode of the Utopia.
And then here we kind of, this guy is killing people. He's more than rough. So I'm kind of wondering what are the required, like, I kind of feel like Utopia Planitia is a very mosaically kind of place now. Like, I'm kind of interested by Utopia Planitia.
It's more like the Forges of Mars is the impression that I get, which is appropriate because it is on Mars. But you know what I mean? Like,
right.
That's the kind of vibe I get off of it.
Isn't that right? True. I mean, like, it's kind of a wrong
like in
place.
Baron Munchausen. Like in Baron Munchausen, when the Baron goes to the Forges of Mars. That's the commandant of the yard. What would you call that person? The person in charge of the space yards. The chief of the space. The chief
blacksmith. I don't know.
I don't know.
Chief blacksmith.
Should be. Who played Mars in Munchausen?
Oh,
wasn't
man.
it?
I don't.
It's a great actor.
They're all great actors in that movie.
It's
all
true.
Of them. I can't remember right now. But
I'll tell you while you.
I don't know.
Going.
I think this is the first case where Picard the show enhances and helps the Next Generation, because I feel that the idea that this murderous Starfleet engineer, I think it's backed up by what we saw on Picard.
I kind of love that you made that connection for me because it totally slipped past me, but I'm always looking for ways of raising the connections between Picard and TNG. So I love it.
So, but I don't think we've discussed enough. Just, I don't know. I'm of two minds here with this homicidal engineer on the ship. I mean, now he just recently, I think they were going through his service records. He didn't serve on the Enterprise the whole 7 years, right? He just recently arrived, if I'm not mistaken.
That's how terrible my attention for this episode was, because I can't remember any of the details.
Yeah, no, he wasn't on.
By the way, it was Vulcan, who is, I think, the Roman Mars, right?
Yes, he's the god of.
He was right. Oliver Reed plays Vulcan.
Oh, see, there we go. Oliver, the great Oliver Reed. May he rest in peace.
Yes.
So, but I mean, I just thought it's interesting, the idea that there's this homicidal engineer bouncing around Starfleet, and one of the criticisms that is currently in the Trek fandom is the way that people are portrayed in Picard, in which we're seeing people who are a little more fragile, a little less perfect, rough around the edges, all this stuff, and yet here we have in Next Generation, in what's supposed to be the perfect representation of Star Trek for many people.
To be fair, the later seasons were no longer like handheld by the great part of the galaxy.
Correct.
Right, but yeah,
correct. But still, Next Generation is the gold standard for many people. Right. And we here we have a a Starfleet engineer who clearly doesn't have a problem with killing people in the engine room. I mean, it's kind of
how does he make it
fascinating to me.
past the these famous psych evals? By the way, I never answered my great romance.
Oh,
To me, it's Dr. Marcus and
that was my second choice.
I knew it.
That was the second choice. Second choice.
To me, that's a great.
But see, with my only,
and it only takes one movie. It only takes one movie to do it.
It's one movie, but and the thing is, we see it's amazing in that movie because we're really seeing, it's over. It's been over for a while, and we're just seeing through subtle flashbacks and dialogue and stuff. But yeah, you do. It's all through the acting. That was the great love story we didn't get, in a way.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you're right. You're right on that one. That's my second choice. I say Kira and Odo just because. Although let me tell you, Worf and Dax is one of the. I mean, I think they make a great couple.
And you really feel the tragedy of that.
You
ending.
truly feel the tragedy, and Worf gets a. Now I'll say this: I think the episode. I think the one who fares. Well, no, I don't want to say fares worse, but. I think Troi has a very strong first half of the episode. I like the fact that she's using her abilities, let's say, rather than powers. Her abilities in an interesting way in the course of the episode. So she's really the only person who can do this. It's showing why she's important. And it gives her a great showcase. And then on the flip side, we've seen I guess a more caring Worf this season. I mean, in Lower Decks, we certainly saw a Worf that was very paternal towards Ensign Sito and being very trying to advance her career. And taking a lot of interest in her as a supervisor, and now here, we also see kind of a gentler side to Worf and this investigation and all this. So it's a good. There was a lot of good character moments in it. I just really think that the whole romance thing derails it, and then the ending, the way the episode ends. I really don't understand the division between what happened and what didn't happen. What really happened became very blurred to me. Did the psychotic engineer really come to her quarters?
She did call actual security, right? Like that. Yeah, it's unclear.
But then, as soon as she leaves the room, remember, as soon as she leaves her quarters, she goes right to the quarter because she asks the computer, "Where is Lieutenant Worf?"
I just remembered how the episode ends. Now you just reminded me.
You understand?
It does actually end,
but it's unclear. And again, maybe this is they're trying to be Hitchcock.
I think what happens is that somehow the episode casts a psychic spell on anyone who watches it, and you go into like some kind of trance, and you don't remember any of the details because it's so traumatic. It's like The Ring. It's like The Ring. It's like The Ring. Ringu, the Japanese one.
Oh, that's funny.
But I do remember the ending now. It ends on a funny note, and I was reminded of the line that she says, "Well, you know what they say, Mr. Worf, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned," and she walks out. So they're debriefing Captain Picard, and Worf says he's asked her why she seemed like she was surprised to see him, like if he was surprised that he was alive, and she's like, she tells him, "Well, you died." And he's like, "How did I die?" And she doesn't tell him that she killed him.
No.
In a mad rage. And what does that say about Counselor? maybe Riker doesn't leave his Imzadi because he's afraid for his life.
Oh God. There's another homicidal officer on the Enterprise. Her name is.
It's not who you.
It's not who you
Deanna
think.
Troi. It's not who you think. No, of course she wouldn't do that in real life. She was under heavy duress.
Well, Crusher gave her a thing.
Well. Also she was recreating her hallucinations. Always recreated the murder. So there is actually a nice. Going back to giving this episode compliments. The nice thing about that scene is what we're seeing reiterated through the psychic experience over and over is the murder that took place, and it was always that way. The laughing, the murderer. It's a crime of passion. The murderer happens upon his girlfriend, who's cheating on him, and they laugh at him. So he's cuckolded, and he goes insane, and he murders both of them, and that's what we keep seeing. So that's why her hallucination was Worf with the the ensign, right? The whole thing, and so it was repeating that same thing, and then they laugh at her, and then she kills Worf, and that's when she wakes out of her hallucination.
No, that's not when she wakes out of her. Remember, she runs out of the
that's
quarters,
right, and climbs the Jeffries tubes and goes straight to the nacelle. That's right.
She runs into the engineer, the homicidal engineer, and he tells her, "You know what you have to do." So it's almost like that's a trigger. But then my complaint is that in that scene, I am not sure of what's real and what isn't, and
I don't think you're meant to.
I'm a fan of ambiguity, but I'm a fan of ambiguity when it's not when it just doesn't make sense. I mean, I'm a fan of ambiguity when it's purposely made so you're not sure.
I think the whole thing's it's like Inception. The whole thing's a hallucination. In fact, all the way up to Picard, we're still experiencing the hallucination. It's never stopped happening. We find out who's more powerful than Professor X in Marvel that can do his psychic thing.
His son, I guess, in Legion.
That's who the homicidal engineer is.
That's who the homicidal engineer is.
That's like who it is now.
I think we delve into.
Yeah, after yesterday.
He's got two pages on this, by the way.
Let's do it. Joshua Chapman.
Pages. Let's see what he says.
This is going to be entertaining, I feel.
Now he's discussing two aliens. So he's going to discuss now the remember the supervisor who was kind of like for a few minutes was what an interesting. What is she? Do we know what her species is? Like I don't think we do. When it says home planet, he put a question mark. And he put, this alien has a weird-looking forehead, but it's not nearly as fucked up as her nose. I think having a crazy nose is basically the worst thing that you can have if you're an alien. There are lots of aliens that are still hot, even if they have forehead bumps or weird spots, or even if they are different colors, but aliens with weird noses are almost never attractive, especially if it means there is something wrong with their nostrils. In this episode, Troi starts hallucinating because she stands too close to a spot where someone committed suicide once. While she is hallucinating, she imagines that she and Worf have sex. That's not what happens. Is that what happens in the episode?
We just watched it, Doctor. Doctor, we just watched this episode. Keep going. Let's see what Joshua Chapman gleaned. I'm telling you, this episode is like as soon as it ends, you forget what happened, and you have your own. You have to make your own interpretation. I feel like that's what it is.
While she is hallucinating, she imagines that she and Worf have sex, which is like the least plausible thing that has ever happened on this show. Worf has always been attracted to strong women, and Troi is basically just a sniveling little child in an adult's body. She is.
I disagree with you, young Joshua Chapman. But anyways, go on.
Let us just put a little disclaimer. These do not necessarily reflect the opinions and views of
Starfleet. But it is interesting. I mean, imagine having young. I imagine there's a bunch of people who feel the same as young Joshua Chapman did.
She is fucking worthless and miserable, and it is utterly ridiculous that he would want to have sex with her.
Wow, Joshua Chapman, anger.
That's page 1.
Wow. He goes from the alien, the alien with the weird face, to that. Definitely an interesting teenager. Go on.
I can't read the next one. I can't.
Is it really bad?
I don't. This is bad.
We've already gone there. We've already gone this far. Dr.
No, I really can't.
All right. Well, we recommend that the audience go pick up the book and read it themselves. Now I have to go read it later on. I'll have to find out. Joshua Chapman's too much for Starfleet Boy? Is that what you're saying?
That's a little too much there. Wow. You know what? You got to buy the book, folks. You got to buy the book. I'm just going to end it with showing...
That's a first.
This is a cover that I guess...
you got to put it more in the middle of the screen because our sides get... There we go. Nice. That's beautiful.
So this is art from Cinema Fantastique, and this is the cover they decided to go with for season 7, which of course shows, prominently Troi and Worf. I think we're at the end.
I think we're at the end too. I'll go first as is customary. I think originally I would have given this episode a 4, but because of our discussion and also because the hands of time have softened this Starfleet Boy, and I really did appreciate what they were trying to do here with Riker. I mean, with Crusher and Troi, and there were some pretty good ideas, as you said. And I was really fond of the new set piece, and it's pretty impressive in the 7th season to pull something like that together and have it be the backdrop to this drama, which gave us we didn't talk enough about it, I think, but just the redressing of the set to be Utopia Planitia 7 or 8 years ago, and then all this there's a lot of lore about the Enterprise being built and things like that just kind of seeps through in this episode, and it reminds you that the ship's only been in service for a short time, in terms of it's only been around for about 8 years or 7 years, so it's an interesting interesting thing that's there in the background. So I'm gonna give it a 5. I'm gonna give it a nice solid 5.
You were correct in your original rating.
Wow.
It's a 4.
It's a 4.
It's a 4. I was gonna say
that's
3.
sad. I was really hoping season 7 would be all home runs, but I forgot about it.
No. There's good stuff in it, but it falls apart at the end. It really does, and it's not just. And I don't want to make it sound like it's just because of Worf and Troi. I think it really just falls apart in terms of the storytelling. It becomes really unclear, at least to me, what's real and what isn't, and then the resolution of this homicidal engineer. We see him taken away, but I feel like that resolution is lacking, and I would have liked to have had more of what was going on in his head. What was he doing? Was he leaving bodies? I mean, is he like some kind of 24th century Jack the Ripper? What is, I think there was more story possibilities here that we could have. This could have been a really creepy episode. I mean, they literally find a body inside the walls of the Enterprise. It's a very Edgar Allan Poe type of there's a lot of possibilities that we could have had with this episode.
Hey, you know what? It's like you can have all the ingredients of a souffle, but it just sometimes it doesn't rise. It falls apart. And so I think that's kind of sums up this episode. It had all the right ingredients, and there's a lot of great effort in the execution, but it just doesn't rise to the souffle it could have been. And maybe hindsight 2020, but I agree.
One more thing, as I just remembered it, what did you think about the suicide PSA from Data I thought that stuck out like a sore thumb.
Oh, what I thought was awkward about that scene was when he's mimicking Geordi's
he goes like this,
and then he like.
Was he
I thought
making
it was
fun of the scene in his? I mean,
I think
I don't know.
I think that's just like standard Data behavior, but we're like he's always like, but it was just awkward the way it was. It wasn't done in the usual kind of charming way. It was a little awkward. I can't believe we didn't talk about that scene. It did stand out to me when I was watching it, but I did think, just from a lore perspective, it was interesting that Data actually considered turning himself off and starting over. That was an interesting.
Yes. It's the execution of the scene.
Right, that he could even do that is interesting. Like, I never even thought Data was capable of such a thing. And you genuinely get, like, the interest from LeVar Burton, Geordi's, the performance as Geordi. Like, you definitely see, like, a shift in Geordi. Like, oh, whoa, I didn't even think, he's like, I didn't think that was something that, you could do. That's crazy. And then, but I guess, like, what would have been more interesting is if Data was trying to, because we have a different view of suicide here in Western culture. We haven't talked about this. We may as well go here. Then, like, let's say in Eastern culture,
yeah, that's true.
Like there are some humans that don't see suicide the same way some other humans do. So it is a tough and interesting question of what is the meaning of it. So I think it would have been more interesting if Data were the advocate for maybe another look at it. But here, clearly, obviously, it's a murder-suicide. It's not a suicide in the traditional sense. I don't think that, I forget his name, the character who commits suicide. Like, he was definitely.
Well, it wasn't suicide at all. It was murder.
Yeah, it was a murder. Yeah,
it was murder. He was pushed to kill himself. so yeah. There was, like you said, there were a lot of good elements, a lot of good ingredients, but the episode just kind of, like you said, the souffle didn't rise.
The souffle didn't rise, Doctor. It just didn't rise. And on that, no, talking about souffle, ours is done. We have to eat it now. So, audience, let us know. I have a singular wit, Doctor. I have a singular wit.
Indeed you do.
So, on that note, audience, let us know what you thought of this episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. And also let us know what you think of our discussion, if you agree with us or disagree with us. We'd love to hear from you. And anyways, live long and prosper. And we'll see you next time.